All right, welcome back here on SportsLine. Tony Formosa from Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway is our guest tonight. And Tony, I think we'd be remiss if we don't go back in time a little bit to 2010 or so. And the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway was in bad shape. I mean, the actual infrastructure was worn down at that point. The crowds weren't coming. The sponsors were leaving. The cars were leaving. And there was a real question whether we were going to keep racing in Nashville, and certainly at the Speedway. And you and your team come in and take over. And I know it was a difficult process, but take me back to that time and I guess sort of the bleak picture that it was. Sure. And what you guys had to do to save the track.
Well, you know, in 2008, 2009, first of all, I've been going to the Speedway. I raced there for 43 years religiously every week. And back then we ran 20, 22 races a year. So I chased the points in every race, you know, for years and years and years. I've seen the Fairground Speedways in its glory, and I've seen it in its almost death, on life support, I guess you could say. And it was just due from different promoters, poor management, people trying to get the track and do things that they really couldn't do. And I'll be honest with you, never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would become the promoter of that racetrack. I always loved the place. I went there, it was always like home to me, but I never thought that I would wind up being the promoter. It literally happened overnight. In 2010, I kept waiting and waiting and waiting for someone. There was some talk that different people were going to come in and take the Speedway over. So I went and talked to Buck Dozier. I just made an appointment, went and talked to him, and I went in and I said, Buck, what's going to happen to the Speedway? He said, come in and sit down and shut the door. And we talked, and he said, no one wants the Speedway. It's, you know, it's run down. There's no attendance. There's no sponsors. The drivers aren't coming anymore. The people aren't coming. And I can literally remember in 2010 where there were less than 200 fans coming to the track. They were starting less than 10 cars in their number one division, and they didn't have but 2 or 3 divisions. And it just broke my heart to see that happen. Mm-hmm. So, you know, he told me that the city didn't want the track anymore. They were going to close it down, and I went home and I just couldn't sleep that night. I was thinking, I can't imagine what it's going to be like driving by there and that place being closed, grass growing up through it and everything. It can't happen. It's the greatest speedway in the world. So I went back the next day and I asked Buck. I said, can I get the Speedway? He said, well, put something together, put a plan together, and I did, and I went back, and they only gave me 5 races. They said you can have 5 races of your choice, 5 races only, and we don't care when they are, but after that it's over. So I went, and the first race was just a home run. We packed the house. We changed the rules around. I can't tell you in words how hard of work it is. You know, you just and so it just kept getting better and better and better. And then, of course, I lost the Speedway to bid in 2011 to other promoters, and it didn't go over too well for them. So I came back in 2012 and took in their 2nd year of their contract, and in 2012 I had to start all over again. And you know, I had a 2-year lease, and we just kept working and working and working, and the city didn't want it. They tried to pass a bill to demolition it, and we formed an LLC called Save My Fairgrounds, and we brought a great lobbyist in, and people worked, and through help of the council, we rallied. We bought billboards, we gave away T-shirts, we bought signs, we made phone calls, and we hosted rallies and everything, and we saved it by 1 vote of the council. And it's terrifying to me to look back a few years and think we came within 1 vote of the council of losing that great facility, the greatest track in America, the track that has by itself alone brought more drivers to professional levels of racing, more Daytona 500 champions, more the biggest training ground for all the greatest drivers that have ever come about in NASCAR, and we came that close to losing it. It's the Fairgrounds Speedways is the Ryman Auditorium of stock car racing, just like the Ryman is for country music. It would have been like baseball losing Fenway Park. It's the most famous track in America, and I'm really privileged. I'm really proud to be the promoter of such a great facility.
It's the cradle of stock car drivers, and you guys have figured out a way to keep it going and now prosper. And you brought up kind of two ends of the spectrum there. You said you've seen it in the glory days. You've also seen it near death. Compared to the heyday that I guess people reminisce about all the time, where are you now? You talk about record numbers and things like that. I mean, is this now the new glory days for this Fairgrounds Speedway?
I think it is, absolutely. It has reached a point to where we're just about doing everything that we can do with what the government has given us to do. It needs improvements. It needs fixing up. Everyone knows that, and it's to the point now where they're not going to demolition it. They got to fix it up. How much help is out there, we don't know. But we have a mayor now that has an interest in what we're doing, and I talked to Mayor Berry last year. She came out for the All-American 400. It was rained out. She was nice enough to come back at our final race of the year, and she had a great time. And I've spoke with her a time or two since then, and she said, "I'm for the people. This is for the people. It's going to stay." So I feel very fortunate to have a mayor that has taken the interest in what we have here.
One of the great things about Nashville is the fact that the city is so progressive in building things and bringing people in and doing things for the community and providing more opportunities. And that's the thing, is to keep the Fairgrounds Speedway around and to make it bigger and better. Having more racing is a good thing in Nashville. Having more events for people is a good thing in Nashville. And I'm glad to see people are doing that, because as you mentioned, wasn't that long ago, they said 5 races, that's it, Tony. And now you have twice that on the schedule out there, which is pretty good. Let's go to Les. Les, good evening. You're on with Tony.
Tony, I just wanted to know if you're going to have the track in 2017.
Well, I certainly hope so. They're on the agenda for the board meeting this coming month. They have on the agenda, they have a meeting for an RFP, which is request for proposals. And we're certainly going to bid on it. We're certainly going to try to stay there. There's no guarantee that I will, but I certainly hope that we do. I'm going to do everything that I can in my power to try to stay aboard as the promoter of the Speedway.
I'd like to thank you for your keeping racing in Nashville.
Well, thank you very much. It's like I say, it's a passion of mine, and I have a special passion not only for the sport but for the facility, and I'm going to do everything I can do regardless of what happens. All we can do is the best we can do and hope for the best. And I think as long as we're doing the best we can do and all we can do, that's all we can do.
There's no question about that. That goes for a lot of things in life, but the best you've done so far has been darn good for that track, and I think that's the reason why a lot of people like Les so concerned and want to make sure that you're the guy in charge of it moving forward. So we'll certainly keep tabs on that.
Of course, if you had a longer term lease, you could do a lot more. It's just like anything. If you lease a parking lot and I only give you a 1-year lease or a 2-year lease, you're not going to go spend a bunch of money on it and fix it up. You're just going to try to make it do the best it can without spending the most you can. And of course, it's owned by the government and everything, and there are stipulations and regulations that we have to abide by. And when we're not having racing there, we're having other events there. So it's we have bicycle riding there, we have 5K runs there, we have tomato dodges there, we have all kind of stuff there, car shows, and it is a very, very special place, not only to stock car racers, but for a lot of people of this community.
Tony, has there been any talk about making that lease period longer? Because as you mentioned, you can do a lot more if you know you're going to be in control of it for a long period of time. Has there been any discussion about that?
There has been, and I think what it's going to come down to is they're going to put it out for bid, and someone may come in that has a large amount of money or a huge amount of investors and come in and say, we're going to come in and spend God only knows how much money on it and make all the improvements that it needs, but only if we get a long-term lease. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. You know, it just depends on how the chips fall, and hopefully everything will work out for the best.
A lot of people are interested in that for sure. A lot of people interested in this race season. We'll get back. We'll talk about some of the key races to look for in 2016 at the Fairgrounds Speedway right after this. Stay tuned. You're watching SportsLine on News Channel 5+.